So welcome to our Get SFU Ready session for new international students. And we'd first like to warmly congratulate you on your achievement in being accepted to SFU. So we also understand that some of you might be still waiting to hear about your admission status. We wish you the very best with it, and we hope that you will hear the good news soon. We are so pleased that you've chosen SFU as part of your academic journey, and we really hope that your experience here will far exceed your expectations. For those of you who might be watching the recording at a later time, please note that the auto caption functionality may not be 100% accurate. So I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that Simon Fraser University is located on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Katzie, Coquitlam, Kaikai, Kwantlen, Simimu, and Tsawwassen nations. So what I just shared is a land acknowledgement, and some of you might be familiar with the concept of land acknowledgements, while it might be something new for others. So we acknowledge the land to honor the indigenous people who have lived and worked on this land historically and presently. So the focus of today's session will be on immigration and medical insurance requirements for the duration of your studies at SFU. However, we will start our presentation by highlighting some student services units and academic resources that you can explore for any further questions that you might have outside of the topics that you see on the screen here. So undergraduate students, if you have any questions regarding your application status or your admission offer, you will have to connect with the undergraduate admissions department. I have also included the deadlines for deferral requests if you're thinking about postponing your start term, but you will have to connect with the admissions team for more information regarding that. And graduate students, the Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies Office, or the GPS as we commonly refer to it, and your academic department will be key points of service during your time at SFU. So the Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies Office is the Administrative Student Services Unit for graduate students. So you can reach out to them if you have any questions about your academic progress, academic policies, and for any information regarding funding and awards that might be available to you as a graduate student through them. And if you need any assistance with your academics or course registration, you will have to reach out to the relevant academic department, and they'll be able to guide you further. If you're thinking about deferring your start term, you will also have to contact your academic department. And undergraduate students, at any point, if you have any questions about course planning or your academic program, or if you're facing any academic difficulties, or even if you're thinking about switching programs, SFU has a dedicated team of academic advisors who will be able to assist you. So international student services advisors are not qualified to provide you with academic advising. But once you have your SFU computing ID activated, you can access the advisor link platform, and you'll be able to see your team of academic advisors who will be able to provide you with course planning and academic assistance with academic inquiries. So you can also book appointments directly with advisors through advisor link if you would like to connect with them. So while our office is not involved with academics, we would like to get the word out about the importance of academic integrity at SFU. So all SFU members are expected to uphold the values of academic integrity, such as honesty, trust, fairness, and responsibility. And this extends to any coursework that you will be completing at SFU as well. So what this means is that any paper you submit must be your own work, any exam you write must be your own work, and any acts of academic dishonesty could result in serious repercussions. And so if you ever get to the point you're thinking about hiring a tutor for additional support with your coursework, be extremely careful of unethical tutors, especially from private tutoring agencies. Be extremely cautious of anyone who is asking for your SFU computing ID or password to help you with tutoring, and you should never give this information out as it is personal to you. This information should be treated like any other high-risk personal information, such as the login to your email account or your personal banking accounts. So sharing this information might put you at the risk of extortion by unscrupulous individuals who might be disguised as tutors. And then if you're looking for any additional support with coursework, you can look at the multitude of resources that are available to you within SFU, often at no extra charge. So if you visit the Academic Integrity website, you can learn more about these resources and supports, and you can also find a list of ethical tutors on that page. So the Center for Accessible Learning, or the CAL, as we commonly refer to it, will make every effort to assist students with disabilities so that they can achieve their educational goals. So their disability access advisors will help students establish accommodations such as classroom and exam modifications. So if you're a student with a suspected or a documented disability, please get in touch with their office as soon as possible, since you need to have these accommodations in place before the term begins. Residents, if you're planning on living on campus, or if you have any questions about your residence applications or moving instructions, you will have to contact the SFU Residence and Housing Department directly. If you plan to live off campus, the SFU Residence website lists some resources, including the off-campus housing partner named Places for Students that they've partnered with. So Places for Students list rental properties near the different SFU campuses. So you can check these out on the SFU Residence website. If you have any questions about scholarships, bursaries, and other financial supports available for international students, please contact Financial Aid and Awards, as all financial aid is administered through them. And finally, Career and Volunteer Services offers a variety of services for students related to work search and career development. So for everything from career exploration to writing a resume to updating your LinkedIn account. You can also get in touch with them to learn about part-time job opportunities on campus that are available to students, which I know is a major interest for a lot of students. And to kind of highlight a couple more transition supports that we have for new students, I encourage you to check out the welcome guides that you can find on our website. So we understand that you could be joining SFU through different pathways. This could be your first time applying to a Canadian university from another country. You could be transferring to SFU from another Canadian post-secondary institution, such as FIC, or you could have gone to high school in Canada. So we have different tailored guides for the different international pathways, and they all come with a downloadable step-by-step checklist of what you should be doing, depending on your category, to ensure that you won't miss anything important. And for undergraduate students, there are 3 online courses called UPrep 1 and 2 and SFU 101 that have been developed specifically to give you an introduction to SFU and help you prepare for your academic transition. So collectively, these courses cover everything from course terminology to degree planning and faculty events. You'll also have the opportunity to collaborate with students from your faculty as you complete the courses together. And this will enable you to make connections at SFU before you even start your first semester. So we really encourage you to explore these resources when you get the invitation to access them. And finally, we understand that connections in the SFU community are important, and making friends would be a huge part of your university experience. So our office periodically hosts various events to gather students together to foster these connections. So if you check out our events page on our website, you can see what's happening and you can attend the events that interest you. You can also follow us on social media to be in the know about what's happening. There are also various student clubs on campus to join as well. So everything from hobby groups to student advocacy work. And if you want, you can even start your own student club. There are also a myriad of events hosted by various SFU units for you to meet other students. So definitely keep an eye out for those events and attend the ones that interest you. So with that, we can now pivot to part 1 of our session, medical insurance at SFU. And for this section, you'll also hear from Ricky from Health and Counseling Services and Ali from Student Care. So there are generally two types of insurance in Canada, primary and secondary. As international students, you must have adequate medical insurance for the entire duration of your studies. So if you have any family members who are accompanying you, they should also make sure that they have sufficient medical insurance for their stay in Canada. So please note that medical services can be extremely costly without valid insurance. So for example, the MSP website indicates that hospital cost can alone exceed $1,000 a day. As such, it's in your best interest, as well as it's your responsibility to ensure that you have valid coverage at all times. And what's the difference between primary and secondary medical insurance? Ricky will explain it.
Thank you. So primary medical insurance covers medically required visits, such as doctor's visits, hospital stays, and medical testing, such as x-rays. Primary medical insurance is legally required for all residents of British Columbia, including international students, and is provided through the BC Medical Services Plan, or BCMSP, as we commonly refer to. BCMSP is administered by a government agency known as Health Insurance BC. Secondary medical insurance generally covers services that BCMSP does not, such as dental care, vision care, and prescription drugs. Eligible undergraduate SFU students receive secondary medical insurance through the SFSS Health and Dental Plan. Graduate students will receive it via the GSS Health and Dental Plan. Next slide, please. To focus on primary medical insurance first, this diagram shows a general timeline for primary medical insurance for students who newly arrive in BC. New students who arrive in BC should apply for BC-MSP right away. There is a waiting period of roughly 3 months before your MSP coverage will be in effect. To cover this waiting period, SFU provides a temporary primary medical insurance plan called GuardMe. For students who are starting in the summer 2023 semester, your temporary primary insurance coverage through GuardMe will start on May 1st, 2023 and end on August 31st of 2023. You will be automatically enrolled in the GuardMe plan after your course enrollment. Depending on when you arrive in BC, your BC-MSP coverage start date will be different for each person. If you apply for MSP right away after arriving in BC in early May, it will be effective towards the end of your first semester, and you will have an overlap period of BC-MSP and GuardMe coverages. We'll go into a bit more detail about GuardMe and MSP in the next slides. Next slide.
Yeah, so GuardMe SFU is a temporary primary medical insurance and coverage plan. The goal of GuardMe at SFU is to ensure you have coverage while you're waiting for BC-MSP to be effective and to allow you to have access to immediate medical services should you need it. So as international students at SFU, you're automatically enrolled in the GuardMe SFU plan only for your first term. We will not be able to enroll you in subsequent terms. The cost of the plan is $281 for the term, and it will be posted to your student account as part of your tuition fees. So you can enroll your dependent family members, if you have any, in your GuardMe plan at an additional cost at the beginning of the term. So as we mentioned earlier, your GuardMe coverage will be valid from May 1st to August 31st of this year. If you arrive in BC earlier than May 1st, you can purchase early arrivals insurance through the GuardMe website. So the easiest way to check if you have been enrolled in GuardMe after course enrollment is to check your student account and see the charge of $281, and it'll say something like international medical insurance. But at the beginning of the term, you will also receive an email from GuardMe at SFU directly, and this email will include a link to log into your account and view your policy details and give you the option to submit any claims. You can also view and download your healthcare access card, which would be your proof of insurance. So this card can be used for direct billing at medical clinics. So make sure that you have a copy of this for future reference, as you will need it for direct billing or to submit a claim later. So if you will not be physically present in Canada and you'll be studying remotely during the summer 2023 term, you can apply for the GuardMe plan by May 30th by completing the out-of-country opt-out form online. So if this applies to you, you must ensure that you have adequate medical insurance coverage when you eventually arrive in BC at a later term. So you can get in touch with our office to kind of discuss your options regarding getting insurance for your first term that should be physically present in Canada. It's also possible that you already have valid BC MSP if you have been living in BC for a while. For example, you could be a transfer student from FIC or another post-secondary institution in BC. And if this is your case, you can also opt out online by May 30th for a full refund of the $281 by providing proof of valid BC MSP coverage. And for those of you who will be brand new BC residents, a partial refund will be available to you if you receive your BC MSP card and opt out before July 30th. To be eligible for all refunds, you must have not used your GuardMe insurance plan. So that gives you an overview of the GuardMe plan. What's key to remember is that your GuardMe plan is temporary and for your first term only. You will need to ensure that you have valid BC MSP by the time your GuardMe plan expires to have continuous primary insurance coverage.
BC MSP is the provincial primary medical insurance, and all students staying in BC for 6 months or longer are legally required to enroll under the Medicare Protection Act. Unlike the GuardMe at SFU, it is not an automatic enrollment process and cannot be done through SFU. If you are physically in BC and haven't applied for MSP already, please apply right away online, or you can apply as soon as you arrive in BC. All new BC residents must fulfill the wait period of roughly 3 months before their MSP coverage will be effective. For example, if you arrive in early May, the waiting period will be the balance of the days left in May, plus 2 more months, which would result in your BC MSP being effective from August 1st onwards. The GuardMe plan will provide you primary medical insurance coverage while you're going through this waiting period. To apply for BC MSP, your current study permit must be valid for a period of 6 or more months. If you have any dependents, they can be added to your plan when you apply. The cost for the BC MSP is $75 per month for all study permit holders and is known as the International Student Health Fee. You will receive the invoice monthly by mail and can make payments online. This charge does not appear on your SFU account, and you're responsible for making the monthly payments and maintaining your account. Next slide. So this information does not apply to everyone, but we wanted to touch upon this and provide you with resources. If you end up becoming a teaching assistant or a tutor marker, you can have the International Health Fee covered by SFU as part of your employee benefits for the duration of your TSSU contract. The TSSU benefits are not automatic, and you will need to apply for it through the SFU Human Resources. What's important to remember is that you will have this fee covered only for the duration of your contract. Once it comes to an end, you will be responsible for making monthly payments and maintaining your MSP account again. For further questions about enrolling in the plan, email tssubens@sfu.ca. Next slide, please. Once you receive your MSP coverage, please ensure that you keep your MSP account updated. As an international student, your MSP coverage will only be valid until the length of your study permit you apply for MSP with. Each time you renew your study permit, you must also ensure to renew your MSP coverage. In the future, if you find yourself in this situation, please remember that you can apply for a temporary MSP coverage if your current study permit had expired and you are waiting for the new study permit to be processed and issued. You can request for temporary MSP coverage for an initial period of 6 months if you apply for a new study permit before your old study permit expires. Then, once you receive your new study permit, you can apply to extend your MSP coverage for the entire validity of your new study permit. Managing your MSP account also entails updating your address if you move so that you won't miss out on any important correspondence and ensuring that you are making your monthly payments. You can do all of this online by visiting the MSP website. Next slide.
So before we move on to secondary medical insurance, the key takeaways we want you all to note regarding your primary medical insurance are your GuardMe plan is temporary, so it's mandatory that you apply for BCMSP as soon as you arrive in BC. And each time your status in Canada changes, for example, if you renew your study permit or obtain a post-graduation work permit, you must also remember to extend your MSP coverage each time. And if you already have valid BCMSP, you can opt out the GuardMe plans by the due deadlines for a full or partial refund. And we will now move on to the secondary insurance plan, and Ali will take over.
Thank you so much, Ishani and Ricky, for that detailed presentation on primary medical insurance. We are now going to move on to secondary medical insurance that is provided to you by your respective student association. So if you are an undergraduate student, that is provided to you by the SFSS, that is the Simon Fraser Student Society. And if you're a graduate student, that is provided to you by the GSS, that is the Graduate Student Society. My name is Ali, and I'm joining you today on behalf of Student Care. Student Care is simply your plan administrator. However, this plan is fully governed and managed by your respective student association. So just kind of to give you a quick overview on what exactly the extended health and the secondary medical insurance is and how it differs from the primary medical insurance, is that the extended medical plan fills in the gaps that exist in primary health insurance. So if you have BCMSP, GuardMe, there are certain things that are not covered by that plan, and this is where your secondary medical insurance kicks in and fills in those gaps. So one example is ambulance services, for example, are not covered by BCMSP, and this is where your extended medical insurance would kick in. If I use extended medical insurance, please, that is just another term for secondary medical insurance. They both mean the same thing, and so I just didn't want to confuse anyone. As Ricky and Ishani mentioned, international students are required to enroll into BCMSP, and then in the next slide here, I will also give you some information about BC Fair Pharmacare. This is something that all BC residents are required to enroll into. If you are a new student starting your semester, or if you're just arriving in Canada, you will be applying for MSP, or if you have already arrived to Canada, you will be doing that in the next few days. So you will be able to enroll for BC Fair Pharmacare at the same time as you are enrolling for MSP. However, if you are a new arrival in Canada and you have not filed your taxes for the past 2 years, so that is the year 2021 and 2022, you will not be able to enroll for BC Fair Pharmacare online, and for that you will have to call Health Insurance BC. That is the same agency that you will be enrolling for BCMSP for, and so you'll be able to do that process online. And so it is important that you do enroll for BC Fair Pharmacare in order to have your prescription drugs coverage maintained throughout the year. And so I really advise you to look into applying for BC Fair Pharmacare as soon as you do apply for BCMSP. In the next slide, we will talk about the coverage that your health and dental plan offers you. So as you can see, you have a comprehensive package of benefits. When it comes to your health plan, you're covered for things such as prescription drugs, any vaccinations, any psychology visits, so any mental health practitioners, and then other supplementary health practitioners such as physio, chiro, massage, and so forth. You've got a dental plan that covers you for up to $700 per policy year for things such as checkups, cleanings, fillings, root canals, gum treatments, and so forth. You got a vision plan for things such as eye exams, eyeglasses, and contact lenses. And then you've also got a travel plan that covers you for up to 120 days per trip for any vacations that you're taking in any given year. There's no limits on how many vacations you can go on. You will be covered for any medical emergencies that you experience abroad. If you are going on an academic trip, you will be covered for the entire duration of that trip, and there is no limit on how many days that your coverage will last you during that trip. There is a special procedure for getting the proof of coverage. So please get in touch with either student care or the ISS if you are going on an academic trip, and we will give you the necessary documentation for that. Since all of you here are international students, it is important to highlight that the travel insurance will not cover you in your home country. The reason behind that is that most people already have health insurance provided to them by their government at home. In the next slide over here, I will highlight the cost of the undergraduate plan cost. So if you are an SFSS member and you are beginning your term in May for the summer semester, the fee for the 4 months, so between May and September, is $89.02. And you also have the opportunity for enrolling your family members into the plan in case you have any. So for one dependent, it would be an additional $89. And for two dependents, it would be ×2 of that. Please note that family enrollments, or like couple and family enrollments, are not automatic. And so that is done manually. And I will also highlight that since all of you here, whether you're an undergraduate or graduate student, starting your term in the summer semester, you are not automatically covered in the health and dental plan. And so you would have to self-enroll into the plan if you would like to have this coverage applied. However, if you continue to be a student in the in the fall semester, so that is in September, you will be automatically covered in the health and dental plan for 1 year. And the fee of that is highlighted on the left side over here. However, that will be subject to change as we get closer to September. Next slide, please. And so this is the cost for a graduate plan for the summer semester, so May to August. It is $155, and same deal, you'll be able to enroll your family members manually for an additional cost as highlighted below. Next slide, please. And so the coverage period, like I mentioned, for the summer semester is from 1st May until August 31st. If you would like to self-enroll yourself into the plan, the time to do that is between May 5th and May 23rd. So that is the change of coverage period. Like I mentioned earlier, you're not automatically covered in this plan. And so this would be the opportunity for you to enroll into the plan. However, you will be automatically enrolled come September. Next slide, please. There are a few ways in case you do enroll into the plan, there are a few ways in which you can claim your benefits. The first one is a PayDirect card. So PayDirect card is sort of the easiest way in which you can access your benefits. You simply present that card to the practitioner that you are claiming your service from, and they will use that information to bill the insurance company directly for the insured portion of the plan. And you don't have to worry about submitting any paperwork or any claims afterwards, because that will be taken care of you from the practitioner's office. In case that option is not available to you for some reason, for example, the practitioner does not offer that direct billing service, you can always submit your claim online using the PBC mobile app. You will be able to register your member profile using your student ID, and you'll be able to take a picture of your claim and submit it online and receive a direct deposit or a check, whichever method you prefer. And then you've also got the online forms. And so if you prefer to, fill out a form and submit your claim that way, you'll be able to download those forms on our website, or you can drop into our office in the Student Union building in room 2301, and our agents will be more than happy to assist you with filling out that form and mail it on your behalf. Next slide, please. And so in this portion, we'll talk about student care networks and how that can be beneficial to you. So student care network is basically a group of practitioners who have partnered with us to provide you folks with additional savings and discounts so that you don't have to spend too much when you're accessing such healthcare services. And so in the next slide over here, I will demonstrate to you how that works with a dental network. So as you can see over here, depending on which plan you are enrolled under, whether that is a graduate or undergraduate plan, your insurance plan will cover you for between 70 to 80% of dental services. And if you combine that with the 20% discount that you get if you go to a practitioner who is part of the student care network, you will be covered for up to 100%, and in some cases up to 90%, and you would only be responsible for paying the remainder of that. So for preventative services, you would be paying nothing out of pocket as long as it is under $700 a year. For basic services, you would only be paying 10%. And for major restorative services, as you can see, is not covered under your insurance plan. However, you still get that discount if you go to a practitioner who is part of the dental network. And so you'd only be paying the 80% out of pocket. We've also got networks for pharmacy, for physio, for chiro, and for psychology. So I invite you to go to our website and explore these benefits that are available to you and prepare yourself in advance so that you know exactly where to go whenever you need to access these services. And in the next slide over here, I will refer you to our office in case you have any questions that come up after today's presentation. Obviously, we will have a Q&A shortly, but in case any questions do come up later, our office is in room 2301 in the Student Union building, and we also have an assistance center online. So feel free to drop in there or ask your questions online, and our member services agents will be more than happy to help you out. So just to summarize our presentation today, undergraduate and graduate students are enrolled in 2 different plans. For the summer semester, your coverage is from May 1st until August 31st. You have to self-enroll into the plan. You're not automatically covered under the plan, and your coverage will reset starting September 1st. And those details will be confirmed as we get closer to September. And with that, I will pass it on to Ricky to talk about health and counseling.
Thank you, Ali. So hi, everyone. I would like to provide a quick overview of our services here at SFU Health and Counseling. We have a team of doctors, psychologists, mental health nurses that are available to help you during your studies. I would like to share that starting on April 17th, you can actually book your appointments with myself and the counseling team online through our new website. And in June of 2023, you will be able to make appointments online to see our doctors. So stay tuned for more details. Next slide. As the transition case manager at SFU, I provide support specifically to students from international pathways and to support you with your transition into SFU. So transition can mean anything and everything. It's different for each person. So some of the topics I support students with include mental health, culture shock, finances, understanding different systems, the labor market, and so much more. So feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to provide you with any type of support that you may need during your studies and your time here. Next slide, please. So at Health and Counseling, we offer a variety of programs and support during your studies. We have group programs that you can participate in and self-guided resources that you can utilize anytime, even now. The best thing is that it's all free and it's all accessible on our website. So please check it out, and hopefully it can be supportive for you during your studies here. Next slide, please. Lastly, I just want to talk about the My SSP program. This is a free mental health program available to any SFU student. You can access it even if you are not in Canada. The program is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call the number on the slide, or you can download the app from the Google Play or Apple Store and start utilizing the service. So that's it for me. Thanks for listening, and I'll return it back to Shani.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ricky. So with that, we will start the Q&A for part 1 now. As such, I will pause the recording for the time being. So welcome back to the Get SFU Ready session. For this next component, you will hear from Karen Lockyer, who's an immigration specialist on the immigration requirements. Over to you, Karen.
So hello, everyone. Thank you for coming back after the break. My name is Karen Lockyer, and I'm one of the International Student Advisors and Immigration Specialists here in the International Services for Students office. Welcome to the SFU community. As a former international student myself, I'm really grateful to be here today. I'm going to spend the next half hour or so with you to share information about the services and supports our office provides and important immigration-related information for SFU international students. Next slide, please. As international student advisors, we are a part of the International Services for Students, or ISS office at SFU. And at ISS, we offer non-academic advising and services to help support your transition to SFU as an international student. You can see a few examples of what we offer on this slide. And when I say non-academic advising, what I'm referring to is your temporary residence status and documents as an international student in Canada. Our team of immigration specialists are licensed to provide advice on your study permit, visa, on and off campus work regulations, and much more. In addition, our team also offers advice on medical insurance and how to navigate the Canadian healthcare system, which can be a bit tricky. We also provide transition support and intercultural programs, and our office includes our study abroad team who coordinate international exchanges and field schools, if that's something that you might be interested in a bit later. Next slide, please. We will be going through a lot of information today. So first of all, please don't feel like you have to remember everything from today. The main takeaway I want you to have from today is really what you see on this slide. It's how to get in touch with us. And you can connect with an international student advisor in several different ways. As you can see here, we offer advising using in-person and virtual methods, and that includes email, phone, drop-in or booked appointments, which we conduct via Zoom or in person, depending on your preference and comfort level. And our live chat advising is temporarily paused, but we hope to reintroduce it again in the future. Our website is a great resource, and here you can find answers to a lot of common questions that you might have. We have created a library of immigration and medical insurance instruction guides, which are all housed here. And there's also lots of different information surrounding study permits, visas, enrollment requirements, and medical insurance on our website too. So it's a good one to bookmark. Like Ashani, I really do encourage you to maybe begin by reviewing our welcome guides for new international students, which are also on our website. They're just a great way to get to understand the different steps you should take to get ready for your time here with us at SFU. If you have questions and you need help and you're not sure where to go, please consider the ISS office your home away from home. We can help to refer you to the appropriate SFU office if your questions are beyond our scope of work at the university. Now, as we move on to the immigration section of this presentation, next slide, please. I will draw your attention to the disclaimer on each of my slides following this one. In the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, immigration policy continues to change rapidly and sometimes without notice. The information that we share today is current as of today, which for those of you watching the recording is March the 10th, 2023. So today we are going to talk about these different topics that you see here in front of you that will hopefully help you in your journey to Canada as an international student. Next slide, please. First, visas and permits are not the same thing, although these two terms are often used interchangeably. A temporary resident visa, or TRV, is a travel document needed by visa-required citizens to travel to Canada. An electronic travel authorization, or ETA, is a travel authorization needed by most citizens of visa-exempt countries, with some exceptions, to board a flight to Canada. The TRV and the ETA do not give someone legal immigration status in Canada, but instead they are travel documents or travel authorizations. These would be automatically issued to you if you applied for your study permit from outside Canada and you've been approved. Your study permit, on the other hand, is your immigration status document. It gives you temporary immigration status in Canada as an international student, allows you to pursue your studies at SFU, and allows you to remain in Canada for a specified period of time. If you will be traveling to Canada for the very first time for summer 2023, and your study permit application submitted outside Canada has been approved, you will receive your permit upon entering Canada after an examination with a Border Services Officer. Next slide, please. Moving along to study permits, you will need a study permit if you're going to be studying at SFU for longer than 6 months. You must be holding a valid study permit for all in Canada components of your program. If you are currently outside of Canada and you hold a study permit that has expired or will expire before you return, you'll need to follow the process to apply for a new or initial study permit, which is an outside Canada application, and wait for approval before traveling back to Canada. To remain in Canada as an international student, it's important that your study permit is valid at all times. So what this means is that you may need to extend your study permit if it will expire before you complete your program. Study permit extension applications need to be made before your study permit expires. We recommend applying for an extension about 4 to 6 months before your permit expires. Study permit extension applications can only be applied for from inside Canada. On this slide, I have listed the current estimated processing times for outside Canada study permit application and an inside Canada study permit extension application. These do fluctuate throughout the year. So they could look very different this time next month, but you can always find these on the IRCC website if you wanted to get a sense of what the estimated times are looking like. Students who are facing study permit application delays, I know are wondering what are their options if their study permit application is not approved in time to come to Canada for the summer 2023 term. Students may consider deferring their studies to the next available intake of their program. And if that's something that you would be interested in looking into, you can contact the SFU admissions team if you're an undergraduate student, or the Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies Office if you're a graduate student for more information about this option. Another option might be for you to start your studies remotely if this is something that your department is able to accommodate. If you were interested in looking into this a bit further, you could always contact an academic advisor to inquire about remote course offerings available for summer 2023 if you're an undergraduate student, and graduate students can reach out to their department directly. It is important to remember, though, that a study permit approval is not guaranteed, even if you've started your program remotely. So it will be really important for you to consider this if you plan to begin studying online from outside of Canada. Next slide, please. Moving on to the topic of transfer students, the steps that you should take will really depend on which stage of the study permit process that you're in. For those of you who are already holding a valid study permit and transferring to SFU from another post-secondary institution or high school in Canada, you don't need to obtain a new study permit to start studying at SFU, providing that yours is still valid. If your permit will expire soon, you'll need to make sure to extend it before it expires if in Canada, or apply for a new permit from outside of Canada if you're outside of Canada and it will expire before your return. If you applied for a study permit from outside Canada based on acceptance to a school other than SFU, and that application is still in process, you would need to submit updated documents like an SFU letter of acceptance to IRCC before your application is approved. You can submit this via the IRCC web form. If you have received an outside Canada study permit application approval and you applied based on acceptance to another school, so a school other than SFU, you would need to submit a new study permit application and wait for approval before you travel. In addition to making sure your study permit is always valid, all students transferring to SFU from another Canadian post-secondary institution are required to notify IRCC that they have transferred to SFU. And the way that you do this is by completing the Designated Learning Institution or DLI transfer process online through your MyCIC account. You are not required to complete this process if you transfer to SFU from a Canadian high school. This process is really important because it does notify IRCC officially that you have begun your studies at SFU. And what that means is that SFU can then be able to report on your enrollment to IRCC, which is one of the requirements we need to follow as a DLI. Next slide, please. If your family members will come to Canada with you or join you at a later date, perhaps, they'll need to get the appropriate immigration documents for their stay. Your spouse or common law partner may be eligible for an open work permit that is LMIA exempt, which means that there's no job offer required. It will be important for your spouse or partner to include proof of your relationship in their application and proof that you are a full-time international student at SFU. This open work permit is most often issued to expire at the same time as your study permit. If your spouse or common law partner does not wish to work and instead will be visiting you in Canada for a shorter period of time, they may apply to come to Canada as a visitor. Visitors are admitted to Canada for a period of up to 6 months, and this is determined by the Border Services Officer upon entry. And your family member may always apply to extend this stay if they wanted to remain in Canada as a visitor beyond that time. We recommend that your school-age children, so children aged 5 to 18, apply for study permits if they will be staying in Canada with you throughout your study period. Children under the age of 5 can generally apply to come to Canada as visitors, and you can request a visitor record for them upon entry to Canada. We have some information on our website about bringing your family and supports for family, and I've linked to this website from the presentation for your convenience. Next slide, please. I'm going to move along now to start talking about the enrollment requirements for international students. Your enrollment at SFU, so that means whether you're studying full-time or part-time, affects your ability to work, study, and stay in Canada after completing your studies. As a study permit holder, you are expected to actively pursue your studies in Canada and make reasonable progress towards completion of your study program. From IRCC's perspective, what this means is that you must remain enrolled in each academic session during your studies in Canada and make reasonable progress towards completing that program. Next slide, please. Your study permit will also allow you to work on and off campus without a work permit, providing that you meet IRCC's eligibility criteria. To work on campus, you must be enrolled full-time at SFU in the term that you wish to work. You can find our full-time definition for immigration purposes on our SFU enrollment requirements for international students website. And it's important to note that the full-time definition for undergraduate and graduate students is different. So I encourage you to review the definition a little bit in advance so that you're familiar with what it means to be a full-time student, a part-time student. In addition to full-time study, you are also required to hold a valid study permit to work on campus, and your study permit needs to include a condition printed on the document that states that you can work, you may accept employment if meeting the eligibility. You'll usually see this wording under the conditions section of your permit. According to IRCC, on-campus would refer to employer locations that include the university, yourself, if you're self-employed, located on the school, and a private business that provides on-campus services to the school. So essentially, it's looking at buildings that are within the physical boundaries of the SFU campus. You can review the full definition of what constitutes on-campus work on the IRCC website. Next slide, please. To work off campus, in addition to being enrolled full-time and holding a valid study permit with the work conditions printed on it, you must also be pursuing a program at SFU that is at least 6 months in length and that leads to a degree, diploma, or certificate. Study permit holders who meet the requirements to work off campus are normally restricted to working up to 20 hours per week off campus, unless it is a regularly scheduled break. During regularly scheduled breaks, you may be eligible to work on a full-time basis. IRCC has introduced a temporary policy that allows eligible international students to work off campus for more than 20 hours per week between November 15th, 2022 and December 31st, 2023. Eligible students whose study permit application or study permit extension application was received by IRCC on or before October the 7th of 2022 benefit from this measure. This measure is pretty complicated, and each student's eligibility under the measure may differ based on their very specific circumstances, which include when IRCC received their study permit or study permit extension application, and whether they meet the requirements to work off campus. Given this, we do recommend that students carefully review the information available on the IRCC website about this temporary policy, and of course to contact a member of our team, an international student advisor, if you have questions about your particular case. Next slide, please. Returning to the concept of irregularly scheduled breaks, examples of regularly scheduled breaks for SFU undergraduate students include the break between full-time terms, the reading week, and the summer term. For SFU graduate students, regularly scheduled breaks may include the breaks between terms, the reading week, and an academic break, which is a category of formal leave of absence that you may be eligible for while you're studying in your program. To be eligible to work full-time during a regularly scheduled break, you must meet the SFU definition of full-time study in the term directly before and the term directly after the break. And you must meet the requirements to work on or off campus under your study permit. If you're not eligible for a scheduled break, then you would need to meet IRCC's work eligibility criteria in the term you want to work, which includes full-time study in that term, to work on and off campus. And in this case, off-campus work would be restricted to up to 20 hours per week, unless the student is eligible for the IRCC temporary policy. It's good practice to check the conditions of your study permit when you get it, or even, if you haven't looked at it in a while, just double check the conditions to ensure that there's a condition that states you can work on or off campus if you meet the criteria. You'll need this if you want to work and obtain a social insurance number. If you are already holding a valid study permit without work conditions and you're now beginning your studies at SFU, you can apply for what's called a change of conditions of your study permit, and you can request to have the work eligibility remarks added to your permit. If you're applying here in Canada, the process to change conditions is the same as the process for a study permit extension. So if you're eligible for an extension at the same time, you can request both a change of conditions and an extension of your permit. And we can help you with that if you have any questions, because I know it sounds pretty complicated. To work, you'll also require what's called a social insurance number, and we often refer to that as a SIN number. This number is used for tax purposes and is also required for your employer to pay you, so it's really important. To get the social insurance number, like I mentioned briefly before, you will require a study permit that has conditions printed on it that says that you may work or that you may accept employment. Otherwise, you won't be able to get a SIN. Next slide, please. If you are accepted into an SFU co-op program, or if your SFU program has a mandatory co-op internship or practicum that's built into the program, then you can apply for a co-op work permit to do your required co-op work terms. You can request a co-op work permit when you apply for your first study permit from outside of Canada, if your SFU letter of acceptance confirms that there is a work or internship requirement in your program. But otherwise, you can also apply for a co-op work permit from inside Canada. So you do have a few options there. Whether you apply in Canada or outside Canada, you will require documents from SFU that confirm that your study program contains a mandatory co-op internship or practicum. Next slide, please. Okay, we'll move on now to the post-graduation work permit, which I know is a big interest topic for many of our students. Full-time international students may be eligible to apply for this post-graduation work permit or PGWP upon completing their program of study in Canada. The PGWP is an open work permit of up to 3 years in length, and you don't need a job offer or work experience to apply, but you do need to complete your degree, diploma, or certificate. Under the post-graduation work permit program, students are required to meet a set of eligibility criteria, which include maintaining full-time student status during each academic term of their studies. And so this requirement's a bit different for undergraduate students and graduate students. For SFU undergraduate students, full-time enrollment, full-time study in the spring and fall terms is a requirement, as these are considered the formal academic terms for immigration purposes for the undergraduate students at SFU. SFU undergraduate students may take the summer term off or study part-time in the summer without negatively impacting their eligibility for a post-graduation work permit. But there may also be some non-immigration related considerations to keep in mind as well if you are going to study part-time or take the term off. So we do recommend you contact the applicable SFU departments just to make sure that you're aware of those. For SFU graduate students, full-time study is required in the spring, summer, and fall terms in order to maintain eligibility for the post-graduation work permit. Possible exceptions to the full-time requirement under the PGWP program may be made by IRCC in a student's final term of study or during a period of authorized leave from study. Note, however, that SFU graduate students are required to go through a formal leave of absence process to take time off from their studies. If receiving a post-graduation work permit after your studies is a priority for you, we do recommend that you ensure as best you can to maintain full-time enrollment in the required terms, as we often do, unfortunately, see work permit refusals in cases where students were not able to meet the full-time requirement. With that being said, if you find yourself in a situation where you need to take a part-time term or take a term off or a leave of absence, there's a lot of different reasons why that could happen. Please book an appointment with one of us, with an international student advisor, and we can kind of go through the immigration related considerations to keep in mind and support you through that process. Next slide, please. So yeah, here I just have a few more of the post-graduation work permit eligibility criteria. which you'll see you need to complete your program leading to a degree, diploma, or certificate, and the program will need to be at least 8 months long. I encourage you to review the full set of eligibility criteria on the Government of Canada website. And here you'll also be able to read a little bit more about the COVID-19 temporary measures in place. As a result of the pandemic, IRCC introduced several temporary measures for students. And one of these was, one that would allow international students to complete all or part of their studies online from outside of Canada without losing their eligibility for a postgrad work permit. These measures were most recently updated in August of 2022 with a reduction in their scope. So students who started or will start a program of study between September the 1st, 2022 and August 31st, 2023 are required to complete at least 50% of their program or programs of study in class in Canada. Next slide, please. We'll shift gears now and speak briefly about entry requirements for Canada and what to keep in mind when we're traveling. Traveling, continues to look different now than what it used to, given what we're all experiencing globally. With regard to entry to Canada, as of October the 1st, 2022, most COVID-19 border requirements, including vaccination, mandatory use of the ArriveCAN, and testing, quarantine, and isolation requirements were removed for those entering Canada. As of January 5th, 2023, all air travelers 2 years of age or older taking a flight originating from the People's Republic of China, Hong Kong, Macau that lands in Canada must provide proof of a negative COVID-19 test result, regardless of citizenship or vaccination status. And since these requirements continue to evolve and the situation continues to evolve, our best advice is always to keep updated by reviewing the Government of Canada website when it comes to entry requirements for Canada, because they can change quickly and without notice. Using ArriveCAN is no longer required, but to save time at the border, you can use the Customs and Immigration feature in ArriveCAN to complete your declaration in advance if you're flying to a participating international airport. And the participating airports are all listed on the Government of Canada website. It includes Vancouver Airport as well. Transport Canada has removed existing travel requirements as of October the 1st of last year. All travelers are strongly encouraged to wear well-constructed and well-fitted masks or respirators during all travel, and to avoid travel if they have symptoms of COVID-19. If you may be transiting through another country en route to Canada, make sure you're informed about the entry requirements in those countries prior to your travel, as there still may be border measures and other measures in place. So it's a good idea just to be updated about those before you leave. And when traveling, it's really important that you're carrying your passport or travel document and your study permit or study permit approval letter, and your visa or electronic travel authorization as needed. We also recommend that you carry your SFU letter of acceptance or your offer letter, and a current SFU confirmation of enrollment letter, which is downloadable via GoSFU. You can review the documents you should carry when traveling to Canada as an international student, both on the IRCC website and on our website as well. And as I mentioned before, if your study permit application was approved outside Canada, your permit will be issued to you upon entry to Canada after an examination with a Border Services officer. Next slide, please. So we're coming to the end of my session now. As always, if you have questions, consider yourself very welcome to contact us, and we'll do our best to help you find those answers and get the support that you need. This now concludes the second part of our session, and thank you to everyone for your attention during this presentation. I know it was a lot. For those of you watching the recording, we will be ending the recording now to move on to the Q&A portion of our session. Thank you.